You can build the best park, you can put the best wristbands in there, you can do all those things, right? You know, when you talk about immersive experience. But if your employees aren't trained, if they don't know how to, you know, even so much as welcome a guest or operate the tech, or even understand what an immersive experience is or a gamified experience, you've lost them. You've lost that guest, and it's going to be very hard to retain them.
What's the one premier event that brings the global attractions industry together? IAPA Expo 2025, happening in Orlando, Florida, November 17th through the 21st.
From breakthrough technology to world-class networking and immersive education, IAPA Expo 2025 is where you find possible.
And just for our audience, you'll save $10 when you register at iapa.org/IAPA Expo and use promo code EXPO, APROS 10.
Don't miss it. We won't.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey Josh, how are you?
Hey Matt, doing well. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
In the same room together.
This is the second podcast in a row that we have recorded that we're actually sharing the same airspace.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So how are you?
I'm fantastic.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, I got a question for you.
Oh, okay.
Remember back when we were combining different attractions just for the fun of it, like axe throwing, haunted attractions, things of that nature. Like
yes,
we were putting things together that didn't go together.
Water slide,
yes.
Escape room. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, in this episode today, I feel like we're combining things that we've talked about before, because we've talked a lot about immersive experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Your favorite word. As the definition changes.
Yes.
We've talked about the employee experience. We've talked about the guest experience. Well, today we're going to talk about an immersive employee experience.
Whoa.
As we talk to people about transforming the way that we train our team members.
We sure are. So we have two guests today. So Jayson Haycock is from Schoox, a leader in digital workforce development and training innovation. And Gina Elliott is the vice chair of IATP. And we get to talk to them all about, like you said, the digital training transformation and the immersive employee experience. We've talked a lot about employee experience. We've talked a lot about immersive, but I don't think we've talked about like great employee experience. We talked
Absolutely.
about the intersection of the guest and employee experience. I think it was only a matter of time before the phrase immersive employee experience came up.
But I love it. And Gina was talking about it in terms of actual training. And so you noticed the light bulb went off, above my head, because we talk so often about the guest experience being immersive. And we've talked about it a lot on the podcast, and our guests have talked a lot about it. But I don't know that we spend enough time talking about it or planning for or being intentional about creating an immersive employee experience where we are designing and being intentional about how they flow through the entire process, whether it's on-the-job training or orientation or their doing their new hire paperwork or whatever it is. Like, are we paying enough attention to that process and immersing them in the culture of the company right from the get-go?
Yeah, and the phrase digital transformation, it sounds like it could be a scary buzzword, right? It's the tech giants that are coming after us. It's just AI taking over our lives and whatnot. But when you and I, we started in the industry at slightly different times, but I think our training was probably identical. And at some point, somebody probably wheeled in a TV and popped in a VHS tape, right? Combination with classroom style, combination with here's your checklists that, initial here, going into OJT, all being a very manual process. And with the tools, and I would say the latest technologies of the respective times, and this digital transformation we've been in, we're kids these days, and by that I mean, kids these days, I'm shaking my fist in the air here, right?
Yes.
Your frontline team members, right? They're attached to their phones, so instead of trying to totally separate that altogether, is, like Jason says, meet them where they are. Is let's actually create the training that resonates in the way that they want to consume the content, and then they will act upon that accordingly.
And what I appreciated also about what Gina said is that it doesn't stop there, right? Yes, we want to initiate that content in a place where they're used to interacting with that device. They've got content that they're used to consuming, and they can consume it very easily. But Gina also talked about the importance of manager interaction. She talked about the importance of on-the-job training. So when people talk about the digital transformation and going to a digital workflow, it's not something where you can just plug in the machine, hit go, and it's hands off, because it's absolutely not. We're still interacting with human beings. Yes, they're going to get content in their mind that they can say, I can recall that information, but we still have to teach them how to interact with another human being.
And I think that's such an important piece, is that this does not replace humans interacting with humans, especially in the business that we're in of humans interacting with humans. Gina made a very good point where, like you said, she specifically said, you can't replace OJT, the on-the-job training. This is about merging it together, balancing it together, and leveraging the tools that you have from it, of not only in the way that the content is delivered, but in the way that you're able to gather the data to be able to create compliance, to create accountability for those team members. And then we dive into talking about risk management and insurance premiums and just all those other benefits that are just integrated so nicely into this.
Absolutely. And one other thing that kind of weaved its way throughout our conversation was investing in your team. And that could be the upfront investment of a digital platform. It could be the upfront investment of spending more time and ensuring that the OJT is correct. But really, focusing on that as an investment and not a cost.
Mm-hmm. So, should we get to this interview so we can talk more about VR on trampolines and other attractions that we can merge together that don't make any sense?
As long as we're doing that while we're having a corn dog that is wrapped in popcorn.
Sounds good to me. A popcorn dog.
Well, hello, Gina and Jason. Thank you so much for joining us for the Attraction Pros podcast. How are you both doing?
Doing amazing. How are you guys doing?
Great, great. Jason, how about you?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So excited for our conversation today. Gina, let's start off with you. Can you give us a little bit of background on your history and your career?
Well, as of 2 days ago, I switched roles. I'm now currently with Slick City Action Park as the VP of Strategy and Administration. Very excited about that and to work with the team. And yesterday, as of yesterday, I'm now the chair of the IATP. Nice. So I'm having a glow up this week. So
Congratulations.
It's working out well. Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations.
And for those not familiar, IATP, the International Association of Adventure and Trampoline Parks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Cool.
Very nice.
Jason.
Yeah, good to meet you. Thanks for having me. I am the Director of Strategic Accounts at Schoox. I've been in the enterprise technology space for HR for the last 8 years. Most recently, this time with Schoox, really stood out to me the opportunity to help companies think strategically with their frontline workforce. And so Schoox is really aligned to companies with large frontline workforces being able to be a mobile-first platform. That really stood out to me. Also being here at IATP, I have 3 daughters as well, and we're constantly going to these trampoline parks. In fact, my 6-year-old was really jealous that I was coming to the International Adventure and Trampoline Parks conference.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's start with some questions about sort of the work between Schoox and IATP in terms of how they can really streamline some of the adventure park and the operation. So Gina, let's start with you. Thinking about the enterprise HR piece that Jayson talked about, how does that really affect the operation of a trampoline park?
Training is such a critical piece, and I mean, to just going back, probably when I first started, with the IATP, and even in previous roles I held before Slick City, there is a direct correlation with training and safety, right? You have to set the standard. You have to be able to deliver that experience, mobile. Back in the past, I think we were all kind of used to it. It was a lot of PDFs, relying on the operator to kind of pass down that knowledge or just to execute those things with those front level team members. But what we found, transitioning to an LMS is you can just really push that down to the hourly employee, and you're gonna get that instant notification of when it's done. You have transcripts. I think for us at IATP, what the important thing is getting that out to our member base. There are a lot of big brands that we have within our membership that do a phenomenal job, but we also have those small mom and pops that don't have the resources to actually deliver that training or to create. And for us, like, this partnership was critical.
And then Jayson, kind of to follow up on that, just this connection between training and safety, and like you said, whether or like Gina said, the old days of just PDFs or just paper or just kind of the manual process there. I wonder if you can kind of sort of bring us to the digital age and talk about the advantages of using digital learning platforms versus traditional training methods.
Yeah, I mean, to Gina's point, safety is huge, especially in this industry. And I mean, I know as a consumer, peace of mind. I'm taking my kids to these places. I want to make sure, or I want to know that these employees are trained. They know how to handle emergencies. But from the employee standpoint as well, it's surprising to us that we'll show up to some of these businesses and see that they're still using paper. They have a binder, papers are falling out, the pages are broken. And it's like, what kind of message are you sending to your employees at a brand new company that they're starting with, that this is what training looks like? And so with Schoox, we really have an emphasis on meeting these employees where they are. So these frontline workforces, especially at these trampoline parks or adventure parks, they're younger folks, they're teenagers, they're in their early 20s. They're used to having information right there at their fingertips and being able to learn quickly and on the go. So we're meeting them with that technology, with the mobile-first technology, and helping them being able to get those trainings quickly and get up to speed as fast as possible.
I had to shudder a little bit because I've seen those notebooks with the paper falling out and stuff like that, and you got the 3-ring binder where 2 of the rings are no good, and so I definitely get that, and certainly from an organizational standpoint, to organize the information, it's super helpful to have it in a digital platform. I'm also wondering what that does to the ability to update, because things change all the time, right? And you've got these addendums in your paper SOPs, and which one do we look at? So I would imagine that would also have a big impact on how we train, how we support our teams, the safety aspect of it. So can you talk a little bit about how even being able to update can help with that process?
I mean, it's probably honestly the easiest thing to do. There's certain software that you use that's compatible with an LMS, right? You can definitely add PDFs, add videos, things like that, but what I found, not even just here for IATP, but in my past life too, there's just little changes that you have to make. For example, it could even be front desk, we don't want to call them team members anymore, we want to call them associates, right? And things like that happen every day, like in every business. I can go into the course, I can make the updates, and I can push it out to previous employees, have them force a retake, to just new employees. I mean, I know we had that podcast yesterday, and I want to reference that, Tech and Trends, right? We had a great cast, a lot of great things came up, but this is part of it too, right? This is the trend, right, where training is going in the future, where I can snap my finger, make an update, and I'm not emailing, printing 300 copies at Kinko's, passing them out and holding classrooms. They get that live right then and there. It's instant access.
I'm curious, even just maybe like pulling back and looking at this from 30,000 feet of what does the ideal training flow look like? Because I've got to imagine that it is a little bit more than just digitizing what was previously manual or classroom style. So curious kind of if you could walk through as far as what you see being sort of kind of the best ways to implement it, whether it is a combination of text-based, video-based, is it assessment, is it games? I've got to imagine just that it opens up so many more possibilities to be able to get information that team member can retain that'll resonate with them.
I think gamification is huge, and we talked about that yesterday, right? Everything needs to be gamified. Everyone loves it. So I think leaderboards are critical, but it's a different, as a training person at my core, it's different learning methodologies. There's different types of learners, auditory, kinesthetic. You have to incorporate all of that, to me, in training. It can't just be words or a video. It's got to be an immersive experience as well. You have to target every type of learner because everyone learns differently. And then there's the follow-up. Blended learning, as I like to call it. So you have your video-based course, then I usually follow it by an exam, because you want to test. You want to verify that they understood the knowledge, and you get a lot of data out of those exams, like exam proficiency. Especially with an LMS, you can go in and run reports and see, is the course missing the mark or is the learner missing the mark? And then OJT, you can never replace on-the-job training. It's a must. To me, the courses are the baseline, but I can sit someone in front of a computer all day long or in front of their phone, but they actually have to go through the motions too.
Yeah. I'm so glad you used the word immersive. Normally I'm not.
Saw you light up.
Excited
I was like, you said the word.
You're a training person at heart. I know this.
Absolutely. Well, because a lot of the people that Josh and I talk to, they talk about immersive from the attraction standpoint. As people are walking into a facility and they want to be immersed in the whole experience.
From the guest standpoint.
But from the guest standpoint, we don't talk about that, I don't think, enough from the team member standpoint and making that training experience immersive. And so that they're fully surrounded by the culture of the company and all the things that they need to learn. And I would imagine that's also where, an LMS and digitizing these resources can come into play. And I'm curious, Jason, like thinking of that immersive ecosystem that someone would go through from a training perspective, can you walk us through like how it goes from an idea in someone's head that we want to train somebody on this particular task or creating this experience for our guests into something that's actually tangible and you can learn from it in a digital format?
Yeah, and I'll add to what Gina said about being able to be agile and on-the-job training. I mean, that's the big thing, especially the way that these parks are transforming. I mean, you might have axe throwing next to VR, next to a bowling alley. And your employees need to be able to be trained on all of these different things and be able to learn quickly on the go. And so I think what works best is being able to watch a quick video, maybe on the spot, maybe learn it. These frontline employees, they learn differently than a corporate employee who's going to be sitting at their desk all day. It's ongoing training in addition to what they have for onboarding, in addition to what they get going. And we've seen huge changes with productivity. It usually takes 3 to 6 weeks for an employee to even get where they're adding any value as a frontline worker to one of these businesses. Schoox improves that. One of our customers had a 30% increase in productivity. It improves sales. So, obviously an employee experience and their knowledge and training is going to transfer right over to the customer experience. Better customer service leads to more sales. Having a knowledge of all the different parts and all the different aspects of their job and what might be asked of them and what a customer could be asking them. And then the other one I wanted to touch on too is just we've talked a lot about safety and insurance premiums and lawsuits. We've seen a huge reduction in both of those through our customers. They've been able to reduce that and workplace injuries is actually $1 billion a year in the United States. Wow. That's what it costs employers. So it's massive and it's a huge problem. And when these insurance companies see that you're using a digital platform and you're able to see results and see changes that your employees have made because of the training that they progressed in, the trainings they've had, they're willing to reduce those premiums. And then obviously that leads, less injuries leads to reduced amount of lawsuits as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, you can build the best park, you can put the best wristbands in there, you can do all those things, right? When you talk about immersive experience. But if your employees aren't trained, if they don't know how to, even so much as welcome a guest or operate the tech, or even understand what an immersive experience is or a gamified experience, you've lost them. You've lost that guest, and it's going to be very hard to retain them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been doing this for a lot of years, and the thing I'd always told my teams is you either make it or break it that first 30 seconds at the front desk. It is very evident as a consumer if you walk in and I'm not, offering you a membership or, upselling this or smiling, even like the most simple thing, you're done. They can buy a pass, they can run through that park, it'll be the most amazing thing, but they're just not bought in. And that's the thing, I think people miss how critical training is.
Yeah.
Right, and you can see that in turnover. You can just walk into a restaurant or a park, and you can tell, if it's, something that they do or they don't do. Mm-hmm. It changes the whole experience.
Mm. So I do want to talk about that more, but curious if we could maybe just kind of continue on the liability piece, mm-hmm. Jason, that you talked about, and Gina, if you're able to kind of help us understand, from the compliance standpoint, from just having that digital record in terms of protecting operators from an insurance and legal standpoint when an incident does occur in a park.
Well, training is, I've had plenty of conversations with brokers, lawyers, especially in this space, and the number one thing that always pops up is training. Now, is RPDFs acceptable? Sure, but everyone knows, right, that most of that is pencil whipped. I can literally just sign off on anything, and although it does hold up in a court of law, it's very difficult, especially now with the digital era. I can say from my past, the first thing when there was a claim was we need a record of training, and it's very easy with an LMS. It's just Excel, download, and everything's in there. I can go in and show them all those things, but it's just an important piece because it doesn't necessarily, think of it like this, it doesn't necessarily reduce the cost of insurance, but what it does is it will prevent, right, and we have seen this in my past, the more educated, trained your employees are, the less incidents occur. We have seen that because they know what to look for, they know how to do their job, they feel comfortable. So with that, it's going to reduce those incidents, and in turn, with that, you're not going to see increased insurance premiums because that's where it happens. The more injuries, the higher the insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Jason, I'm wondering if we can go back, because I totally appreciate what you said about all those benefits and things, but there's still this curiosity in my mind, especially Gina, as you talked about the mom and pops who may not be as ready to change over to digital platforms. What is that process that you go through to take that idea of training and make it something that is digitally ready? Because I would imagine that there's a lot that goes on, but it's probably not as overwhelming as maybe people think. So maybe just kind of walking through that process a little bit for us.
Yeah, I mean, we, at Schoox, we have an implementation team that will come in, they'll see what you're currently doing, we'll strategize with you and make a plan for what you want it to look like. And, I talked about some of the value that our customers have seen from implementing Schoox, and that's what we want to focus. So we're taking a top-down approach. What are you hoping to get out of this, and what can that lead to? So we're setting up all sorts of things. How are your employees going to learn? What are they going to learn? We have content providers to work with to help decide what kind of content you're going to be using, and then also career pathing as well. Where do you see your employees going to? That makes a big difference to an employee that's looking for a job or starting, manning a booth at a adventure park. They might want to be a GM someday. And so if you can set up that career path for them and give them the training right now that they're going to need, they're going to feel heard and feel ready. And so we really take care of a lot of that guesswork. It's something that we've done many times before, and so we can go into a business, and even if they're using a binder, we can turn that binder into a digital experience for them, and a learning process that their employees are really going to enjoy.
We've touched a little bit on data, and I wonder if we could dive a little bit deeper into that. I know there's the data from the compliance standpoint. You talk about being able to export into the Excel sheet and just see the record of training. But curious as far as just additional metrics that operators are able to track, so they're able to show kind of the return on the investment in the training program.
Oh, do you want to take this one? Because I'm really, you can start and I can piggyback, because I'm real excited about this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I mentioned before, the productivity. So what is the amount of time it takes for an employee to get, from their first day of work to be able to get out to the sales floor? So that time to productivity is a big one, and then sales is a huge metric that we're tracking as well. So like I mentioned, a better trained employee is going to lead to more sales, and in a lot of these businesses that that's the main focal point, right, is revenue. So getting to that bottom line of revenue, and then I think there's a lot of things too, the intangibles that you're not necessarily seeing. It might not always lead to sales right on the spot. Maybe this employee isn't selling more, but customers are continuing to come in. Like I mentioned, where I go into a business and I feel like my kids are safe, that makes a big difference. That's creating a returning customer. So I would say productivity and sales, in addition to what I said about the insurance premiums, are really the big factors that we're seeing in this adventure park and family entertainment industry.
Yeah, and with my previous employer, I actually did a couple case studies on this. And one was on turnover and one was sales, and I was able to directly correlate a park, we were using Schoox there, a park that had a 90% completion rate actually increased in sales when we launched the front desk course, which everyone knows front desk is where you sell your membership, your jump passes, all those things, and those sales held steady. We also saw, I did a case study on two parks side by side. One was, I believe, 95% completion rate. The other one was in the low 20s. The turnover in the park that was in the low 20s, I think, was at like 90%. It was something outrageous. And the other one that had a very high completion rate, their turnover actually dropped year over year, I think about 60%. So, I mean, it's there, right? Every training person knows that, when you have a nice base, like training baseline, and, you're going to reduce turnover. But I think more than that, on the employee side, I think we've all been in those shoes where we've been the new person and coming in, whether it was at a park or a corporate office, you just get the feels like, hey, they care about me. They're actually investing in me. They're not just throwing you at the front desk. They're not just throwing you in the kitchen. I spent 20 years in restaurants, so that was definitely a thing. It's like we're taking time out of our day to teach you, like, how to run this operation. And I think that resonates with people a lot.
Gina, can you talk a little bit more about that turnover piece? Because the completion rate, you're making that comparison to the turnover rate, which, I definitely see that happening, but I can always also imagine that there's other things happening in that center that are contributing to that turnover. So it's like the completion rate is a symptom of other things that are probably going on. So can you give us a little insight about what other things might be going on that would contribute to that turnover?
Yeah, look, too, it's definitely more than completion rate, right? There's a lot of people that just check the box and go, oh, look, I checked this box, I'm at 90% completion, I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. But there's other factors, too. It's a very holistic view. So how I look at it, too, it's not just the training. It's like, what do the social scores look like? What do the sales look like? What's the sentiment? You can tell a lot from social scores as well. You just have to tie everything together. Mystery shops, Josh, I know this was your past too. So when I look at it, when you talk about the full KPIs, it's sales, mystery shops, social scores, and then training. Once you put all that together, and that complete ecosystem, you can really get a big picture of what the outliers are. So if I'm doing well in training here, but I'm getting low social scores, what's going on? But again, it's buy-in, it's the GM, it's the culture, like everything plays in. A good culture is always going to have a focus on training, always.
And I think part of it is the industry itself. I mean, the frontline workforce, there's going to be a high turnover rate. Like I mentioned earlier, these are younger kids, and because of the nature of it, there's going to be high turnover. But I think being able to build that culture, I mean, turnover leads to more turnover. When you're entering a job and your peers are leaving constantly because they're unhappy or they feel like they were untrained, that's going to lead to more turnover. But if you create a culture where employees are wanting to stick around, where they see a future, the turnover rate might still be higher than some of these other industries because of the nature of the frontline workforce, but you can dramatically decrease that rate.
And then to kind of just take that even a step further is just the role that ongoing training plays in building that culture, building employee confidence, creating that accountability amongst the frontline staff, but also making it scalable across a franchise system too.
Yeah, I mean, employees are walking in to a business and seeing paper records and they're walking right out, right?
True story.
But if they're walking into a business that they can see right from the beginning that's invested in them, that you mentioned being able to expand it to all the business. They see that it's invested in them from the beginning. They see what it would look like if they become a manager, if they become a GM, a business that's really dedicated to an employee. Those are the type of employees that are going to stick around. They're going to have more success with the customers. They're going to feel happy. In the frontline industry, they're going to go and tell their friends, hey, come work at this company. They've set me up for success. They're going to be the kind of place that I'm still going to want to work once I'm done with college. Referrals are huge. And then we're also helping these businesses meet their employees where they are. They're able to learn quickly. They're not going into work feeling like they don't know what they're doing, or they're dreading the day because they're working this different station today and they're not going to be able to do it. They feel well trained, they feel confident, and ultimately, they feel valued by their employer.
Yeah, and who wouldn't want a well-trained staff? I mean, I think we've all worked for someone who were like, oh, I'm just going through the motions, right? And you can just, again, it breeds you're either going to get a great culture or not. Like, again, even taking time, and it's not just like the one and done training, it's ongoing, right? There has to be ongoing training as well. It's not just the get in the door training. Like, what are you doing continuously to help develop your team? To ask them, hey, or to pay attention, like, what are you doing, like coaching on, like, Love Schoox, there's a coach model in there where you can do instant coaching as well. There's so many valuable things you can do to continuously like coach your team and bring it front and center. It's not just a one and done, but again, like, those employers, those parks, those everything that have that great culture really embrace the training and embrace all of it. And, again, you can just tell, like when you walk in an establishment, like the difference instantly.
How do you break out then that initial onboarding and kind of the training like necessary for just getting into position, and then the ongoing training? Because one argument could be, well, they need all of that up front before they get on the floor and interact with the guests.
No, they don't. Like, look, there's again, like, there's too much of a good thing too.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen it too, where it's like, I have to shove 300 modules in their face and 300 videos and all this PDFs, all the works. It's overload. Like, this is where you lose people too. Short, sweet, to the point. Like, we're dealing with 16-year-olds here, right? I have a 19-year-old, 16, 17-year-olds. I know what that's like. Very short attention span. You have to give them the bare minimum. So in my past, it was team member orientation, 15 minutes. What do you absolutely have to know today? Just, again, to check this box before you go to OJT. Basic things. And you just build, you build, you build. And you don't, shove it in their face all in one day. I had parks that would tell me, oh, we sat them down and we did all the videos in a row. And I'm like, oh my God, those people probably quit. Right? So they're definitely not
They
even
probably didn't retain nearly
You're
much.
not retaining. That's why it's like 10, 15-minute video, exam, boom, OJT. It's a process. It's a system. All right? Now let them hang out in that role for a day. Now let's move to the next thing. Building blocks. But again, too much, come on, let's be honest, who can, figure out a job in 3 days? No one. So it's going to take a while. It'll take like 30, 60, 90 days for you to really get comfortable in a role.
Well, and I think that's what's so interesting, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday in the other podcast, is that there's still this human element that you have to be cognizant of. Yes, you can have all that great information in the LMS. You can have it all beautifully laid out with videos and PDFs and quizzes and the whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, you've got a human being that you need to have understand that material. They need to immerse themselves in it. They need to be able to show that they know how to do it. And that can take a different amount of time per person. So I'm curious, like, if I'm thinking about, the old ride operator training that I would do, right? And I would teach Josh how to run a ride. And I'm watching Josh do it, and I can watch to see if he's proficient and then make the judgment if he's ready to go on to the next step, right? So there's got to be that element built into the digital world as well. So I'm curious how you, account for that in terms of, moving on to the next step when you have the digital entity that is making that judgment versus a person watching them make that judgment.
Well, I think part of it was, again, going like how it was built. So it was very layered, like the way I built the learning paths and the courses. Like, for example, it was the video piece, right? Which again was very engaging. You have people moving, all the things. And then the exam proficiency. But then when you got to the OJT, it was, let's say, per course or per day, 5 pieces of OJT. First one, watch the safety video. From there, the manager, the operator, can go in and use that at proficiency levels, exceeds expectations, meets expectations, like so on. Check the box, drop down, and write notes. So it's like me as another manager going in, I can go in and look, okay, this is what training looked like yesterday. Why is someone below expectations here? But I have that record in there now, and I can go in and make those adjustments. Another thing I did was tie job skills to each course. So for example, court monitor, I tied safety awareness to it, and it was weighted. So obviously court monitor was weighted much higher than cleaning. I mean, cleaning is important, but let's be honest, if you can't mop a floor, I'm not gonna fire you, right? But if you can't blow a whistle, right, then we have a problem if someone breaks their legs every day. So I think that's part of it too. Like when I would see dips, right, in safety awareness, sometimes I was able to isolate it to a park, or you can isolate it to a manager. So what does that tell me? It's not necessarily the course that's the issue, right? Maybe it's just like, oh, you have to get this training done. Just hit play. I had safety measures in place for that as well. I had measures in place where they couldn't fast forward. But you can tell, right? You can just tell just from that as well. So there's ways to not remove the human element. You have to have the human element. You can't verify it any other way. And you constantly have to coach, but it depends again all on the operator. How far are they going to take it? I give you the tools, right? But are you willing to use those tools and kind of build from there?
Yeah. Jason, you mentioned earlier, you used the phrase meeting them where they are, and I think that there's kind of like a nice tie-in with this in terms of kind of getting the team member up to proficiency, not overwhelming them, and obviously, I don't think anybody in the history of time has wanted to sit through just days and days and days of of training, whether it's classroom style or if it was wheeling in the TV with the video in it. And I remember in my early days, it was pop in the VHS and watch this standardized video that came in. But I'm wondering too, is this just TikTok culture? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but just as far as when you say meet them where they are, well, that's what they're doing. They're they're just on their phones and kind of scrolling through and say, I don't, just kind of like swiping to the next, and they're able to consume content in specific ways. So is this the opportunity to say, great, we're right here with that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Employees at this stage, or especially at that age, are learning in a certain way and used to learning in a certain way. Someone who's used to clicking through a TikTok and learning something new every 30 seconds is, I mean, you said it wouldn't work. It really doesn't work for anybody to sit through a 3-hour training, but especially someone who's used to learning quickly is definitely not going to be able to sit through a 3-hour training and get anything out of it. So yeah, the digital age that we're in right now, where information is readily available and you can learn it quickly, and in some ways you need to learn it quickly because that's how your brain is used to processing things. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean by meeting them where they are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% with you. In my previous life, I ran polls and surveys, you know, and that was the one thing I got. It's like it has to be like quick hit, you know, what we like to call micro learnings. Some can't be micro learnings, right? Some have to be. But again, even the courses you built, you know, getting them to click next, little videos like within the course of showing like what this looks like. But it has to be an immersive experience. You're just going to lose them. I mean, find me one 17-year-old is like, I want to read a manual. But you know, my daughter would probably slap me on the side of the head with it if I gave her a manual to read. They're just not interested in that anymore. They don't care to learn it that way. They don't consume it that way. They're not like us.
Well, and I was going to say that also goes back to what you said earlier about the different learning styles. Like there are some people that can read it and absorb it, and then there's other people who can read it and not absorb it, right? And then they have to see it, and then some people need the combination of it. I would also think that there's, you know, the importance of that OJT is really, really amplified when you have people that are interacting with other human beings, right? Because there's certain things that you can learn, you know, in the digital world, but then when you're put that court monitor and actually blowing the whistle and now interacting with somebody, you know, in real time, or you've got somebody at the POS system and they're now, you know, interacting with a person who might be upset and that kind of thing. We can go through scenarios, but there's also that human element that we have to include. So again, I love the way that you talk about building those building blocks, right? So you've got those different elements. And I don't know if there's a question in there, except that I love the way that you kind of laid that out. But maybe the question is, you know, for people who are maybe looking to make the digital transformation, what are some things they should be thinking about when they're looking at those building blocks and even being ready for an LMS?
I think, you know, again, I'm going to throw out IATP. I think this is the, you know, foot in the door. So with our membership program here, it's almost like to test the water. We have, you know, to every member is 30 plus general education courses. Think of it just at an operations level, like a higher level, like marketing, talent acquisition, like technology. But that's almost like dipping your toe in to see what this is like on the other side, right? The digital side. It's a whole new experience. Honestly, for those that don't know, we actually had a park sign up, and, you know, I got some amazing feedback. They're like, wow, like we didn't even know this was like really a thing, like it was possible. They're like videos within, and it just scrolls, and there's triggers and there's animation, there's all these things like you can do with learning now. But again, it's how far you take it, right? Everyone learns different. I'm definitely a hands-on learner. You can tell me all day long what to do, but I have to go do it. I have to see it, I have to touch it and experience it in order to understand it, to process it. But
and then that kind of brings up the question of where do we go from here? So if we were to think about the future of digital learning, if we were to project 5 years out, 5 years down the road, where do you see this evolving for attractions, for trampoline parks, FECs, and we're kind of in the entertainment recreation space?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that we develop content is going to change significantly. So these businesses are evolving. These entertainment centers are not looking like they did before. I mean, I went into a place, I'm a big pickleball player, and so I went into a place a few weeks back. They had pickleball next to another sport, next to bowling, next to axe throwing and arcade games. It's not like it used to look like. And so the technology is evolving. Think about VR technology. And so the way these employees need to be trained quickly and be agile and, you know, learn different skills quickly is happening. These businesses are evolving quickly. Their skills need to evolve quickly. And then just a big change, I think, with AI as well. We're going to see big changes with the way that AI is able to connect people's learning to the skills that they want to accomplish. So whether that be moving up in the company or whether that be going back to wanting to increase revenue or improve safety. So being able to connect those specific skills that you want your employees to have with the training and then obviously the way that content is generated in general. So being able to produce that with everything else, AI is going to make big changes in that as well.
Yeah, and I also sit on the customer advisory board for Schoox as well, and having some insight into what's coming, that's definitely the direction it's going. Like within the platform, AI is going to be able to like prompt, okay, we saw you failed at this exam, here's a suggestion. Like as an admin, you can create, hey, your team is scoring really low here on this scale, let's focus on creating a micro-learning for this to close the gap. But I think even in the creation of courses, I was, again, right now it's like a lot of videos, things like that, but I was even playing around probably not too long ago with a more immersive course. Like think of it as like a fly through of like a trampoline park, like where you're going through like, with a spotlight, just honing in on the specific areas of the park, and it's a little more interactive than, just your normal video course. But even the way training is being put together as a more immersive experience and more of a guided tour, like for example of a facility. They were talking about gamifying the park. It's I think Philip had mentioned it yesterday, gamifying the park. That's almost like what we're gonna see with training. Training is gonna be gamified. Not just like outside, right, that ties to a leaderboard, but you can gamify actually within the courses now. So I think it's exciting, the direction it's heading, but again, I can't say it enough. Like, you just have to train your people. I don't know what else to say, but it's so important to just train your people. And there's so many tools out there too they can use. Instead of a Staples binder, a Staples 3-ring binder that's on sale during schools in session season.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you may have already answered this question, but I just wanted to give both of you an opportunity to, toward the end here. If you had one piece of advice for operators out there as they may be getting ready to make the digital transition, or if they're in there and what they can do more effectively, you just said train your people, which I think is a great sentiment. But anything else from both of you on kind of that last kind of piece of advice for people?
I think it was said yesterday, don't be scared. Like, don't be scared of technology. I think that's what we're seeing in this industry right now, and I think, the team echoed it yesterday. I think a lot of it is, there's a certain comfort level. Restaurants are a completely different beast. When you talk about evolution of technology, they're like lightning years right ahead. Even point of sales, like everything. I mean, you're probably familiar with this too. But I think there's a certain audience, right, within the trampoline and adventure parks. It's almost like very comfortable, right, living in this certain space where it's like everything's a manual process. You have to evolve. You have to evolve with, trends, with technology, with AI, and training goes along with that. It's time to toss the binders in the trash. There's other ways to do it, even if you don't adopt an LMS, but that old school kind of methodology will catch up at some point, because insurance is going to look at everyone and go, we're just not doing paper anymore, And it's like, it's better to be 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead than 5-10 steps behind. So, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You don't like it, you can go back to the binder, but at least you have to try it. I think it's just such a more seamless, easy experience than doing it the old school way. And I'm pretty old, so I know that old school way very well. So,
yeah, I would say my number one piece of advice would be invest in your employees. I mean, obviously there's a cost associated with being able to improve your learning platform and being able to move to digital training and a good digital training space. But there's so much more than just the ROI numbers that I shared. You think about all the money that these businesses are spending on marketing, and yet one bad experience, one untrained employee can take away all of that. And businesses are really quick to spend a lot of money on recruiting talent. It costs a lot of money to bring on a good employee, only to have them not trained well and want to leave right away. So I would say that make your employees feel like they're heard, like they're valued, and if it comes to spending that money at the beginning, do it, because it's going to ultimately lead to a better customer experience, a better employee experience, and a more successful business.
Tying into that, we're down to our last kind of few minutes here as we start to wind down, is turning training from a cost center into not only an investment, like you mentioned, but also a competitive advantage too.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone listening to this who's thinking, okay, this sounds like me, we're using paper, or our training isn't, maybe we're using an LMS, but our training isn't very good, to not think so much, okay, we're spending this much and we're training our employees this well, but think one step further. Why do you want your employees to be trained better? Are we growing a lot? Are we trying to open up more locations? How much quicker could we open a new location if our training is better? How much better is our customer service? What are our reviews going to look like? What's our retention going to look like? What are our employee referrals going to look like? So think about, don't just think about it surface level, okay, I'm spending money and thus the training's going to be better. Take it one step further and think about what that improved training can help you accomplish, and ultimately what kind of value to your business that's going to lead to.
Yeah, and I would actually, if I could partly
Sure.
answer that
Yeah.
question also, just thinking about the investment up front. Yes, there is a cost to it. There's money out the door that's happening. At the same time, when you've got turnover, and you talked a lot about turnover, Gina, and you've got people that are, not selling as much as they could, like that's a cost also. It costs a lot of money when you're turning over people. And so what I've talked to people before about is like, you're spending the money. You're spending it either proactively or reactively. And so many times they don't see it as much reactively. Oh, we just got to pay it because it's turnover. But when it's dollars that they have to put out ahead of time, then it's like, oh, well, I don't have a budget for that. Yeah, you do. You're just paying it later in the season.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's I think another aspect of when you're making that investment and how you look at it.
Well, 100%. It's that labor, and I ran those numbers too. I think the average hourly employee is somewhere around $250, $300. I mean, nothing. I mean, it's a drop in the bucket. Let's say $350 on the top end, because most people, $15 an hour. So what is that, 3-4 days? Like, calculate that times, however many you're turning over constantly. I mean, that's thousands of dollars, right? And even if it's 10% turnover, because you're always going to turn employees, right? That number is much lower when you actually invest on the front end. That's just the scariest piece. It's like, oh, I don't have money. I can't put them on the schedule. I don't have, my other favorite one is I don't have time. Like, well, if you have time to onboard people every single day, right, because they're quitting, you definitely have time to train. And it's not manual. Just at minimum, I'm like, launch the app, get them up there, just put them with a team member. Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So as we start to wrap this up here, first I just want to say I appreciate this conversation. This has just been so fascinating. Jayson, if people want to learn more about Schoox, or if they want to get a hold of you directly, where would you send them?
Yeah, they can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, Jayson Haycock. They can also go to our website, Schoox.com, and we'll have plenty of people happy to help them.
Cool. Gina, what about you and IATP?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn as well, Gina Elliott, or you can visit our website, indooradventureparks.org, and our fabulous director, Alexis, will reach out to you just to sign up for a membership. And we have our own IATP Academy. It's a free benefit to all members, and we have tons of education there. And then we're also going to add everything from the conference in there as well. And probably this podcast.
Sweet. So if you're listening to it in the Academy,
That's right.
We
know where it came from.
Ironic, yeah.
Well, Gina and Jayson, thank you both so much for your time today. As Josh said, this was a fascinating conversation. We really appreciate it. And for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.